Endorse yourself even for one thing. You got up today, you showed up in the world, and be present to that and endorse yourself.
In this episode of Wisdom, Wealth, and Wellness, host Jonathan Satovsky welcomes clinical gerontologist Karen Faith Gordon to discuss healthy aging, emotional wellness, and navigating life transitions. Karen shares her holistic approach, integrating mindfulness, compassion, and cognitive behavioral therapy to support individuals and families through aging and caregiving challenges.
Welcome to another episode of Wisdom, Wealth, and Wellness podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Satovsky. Today I'm honored to have my guest, Karen Faith Gordon. She is a clinical gerontologist and the founder of Karen Faith LLC. With over 3 decades of experience, Karen has dedicated her career to guiding individuals and families through the complexities of aging, grief, and life transitions. This topic may not appear to be about finance because I spend my past several decades focusing purely on the money, perceived to focus on the money aspect. But when you're helping people from a soulful level and you're trying to create a lifetime of abundance, you're not just talking about their money, you're talking about their wellness and aging. And Karen's approach to this deeply holistic, integrated, it integrates cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness practices, compassionate care to support her clients' mental and emotional well-being and the families, beyond. So in this episode, what's crazy is she's got an 8-week waiting list. So if you call to try to get an appointment, it's like 3 months out. So she's in hot demand. So we're lucky to have her today. And in this episode, she's going to share her insights on the aging narrative, the importance of community engagement, and strategies for navigating life's later stages. So let's dive in. Conversation that promises to enrich your understanding of aging with grace and purpose. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation to this conversation. Thank you.
So, okay, let's reel back and take us to the beginning. What sparked your journey into this kind of work, and how did Karen Faith LLC come to life? I think before you answer, I just want to say I believe I might have had something to do with the faith part, the Karen Faith LLC, but I digress. All right, go ahead.
Well, to flip the script on what you might often hear people say about their work with older adults or their interest in this arena, I was fortunate to have healthy aging grandparents as my sort of lens into older adulthood, and I did not realize it at the time. And as I look back now at this place where I stand on the mountain, I am inspired and in awe of what I learned from their demonstration as healthy, active agers who were engaged with their family, their friends, and their community. And when I said flip the script, it's that oftentimes people in this work are informed by experiences of illness. And I am so blessed and feel very humbled and grateful to say that my chosen path was guided by health and wellness in the people I saw in my life.
Brilliant. And just for the audience, I did contribute to the faith part, right? The Karen Faith LLC. All right, we don't have to go there. All right, number 2. Considering the number of Americans age 65 and older is projected to increase from 58 million to over 82 million by 2050, almost a 50% rise. Are we ready as a country for this? And yeah, what are your thoughts there?
I think the short answer is no, we're not ready. Our systems are inherently flawed, and I am someone who appreciates a positive lens to look through, and so in that vein, I will say we are making strides by having conversations like these to inform and educate ourselves about what it looks like to navigate this roadmap. Yet where we stand today is I would say we are in a crisis of care. The demand exceeds the supply that we have in terms of our understanding and our capacity for being with people on the aging journey.
So what is your, let's dive a little deeper in that. So what is someone comes to you at what stage of life, what age? When they're sick, when a spouse is sick, when a family member's sick, like what's the stage that someone comes to stumble into your office?
Yes, no, that's a great question. And hopefully they're not stumbling, but sometimes they are. And oftentimes, if it's not a physical stumble, they're mentally stumbling because they feel so lost in what is their perceived or real chaos in their life. I no longer refer to myself as a geriatric social worker because the word geriatric implies the elderly, older person. And while I do see older elders, I more and more am seeing people who look like you and I. Okay, I'm the people who are being called to me are the young adults. I'm talking people oftentimes in their 40s and early 50s who are starting to observe changes in their parents, or even observing their parents taking care of their grandparents. I mean, we've got longevity, we've got people starting families at different stages of life. We've got people managing multiple complexities at once. And when it comes to, and then compound that with role reversal, which is definitely something that can be striking and very uncomfortable for adult children who are seeing something in their parents they can't quite define, and yet they know that it needs attention and they don't know what kind of attention it requires. And add to that mix when you have multiple siblings who are all perceiving those same two parents in different ways based on those historical relationships and how each one relates to that particular person. So the answer to your question is yes, I see people, they call me when they've been diagnosed and their doctor has advised them to talk to me about processing what it feels like to go through this fundamental shift in their life based on a diagnosis. People come to me when their spouse is being affected by a disease process that is impacting their life together, and children of parents and grandparents who are trying to help them navigate whatever path forward is next for them.
Is the most prevalent diagnosis Alzheimer's, dementia, what cognitive decline is that?
Dementia and Parkinson's are the two
most prevalent. Interesting.
Most prevalent diagnoses.
So that's why you got into your yoga practice. I'm told that mobility helps offset or delay the onset of dementia, if I'm understanding correct.
Well, I like to believe that as a yoga practitioner myself.
There you go. I like that. All right. So it's interesting, cognitive decline. I've been in wealth management for 3 decades, and when I started, most of the people that had money that would come to me were 65 and older. And it was fascinating that as a 20-something, that people 70 and 80 were hiring me at 20 and 30 to help them with their money. And I immediately early took on that role reversal that you're describing as a more paternalistic steward, not just for them, but for their children and their grandchildren. So it really speaks to me. So talk to me a little bit about listening as a form of leadership. How your practice of deep listening has shaped your personal and professional growth, and how can others practice to cultivate this wisdom in their relationships, particularly as you described the dynamics of relationships between siblings that might perceive different things that are going on. And just I think this is one of the greatest challenges in life. So I imagine your hot demand, you must be an expert. As you can see, I'm speaking too much, so I'm going to shush and practice my listening.
No, I love everything you're saying. You're naming so many important things, and it brings to mind a quote that I love by Esther Perel. Are we listening for the sake of rebuttal, or are we hearing for the sake of connection? And I think that oftentimes families are, first of all, we're creatures of habit, right? So we're already in conversation with family members and people with whom we've got history. We tend to go into habits of dialogue that run us into a merry-go-round. And what I am very blessed to be able to do is to invite multiple family members into a space where there can be a new level of listening that can be demonstrated by me and invited to them, to encourage them to hear each other for the sake of connection rather than the listening that is for the sake of the rebuttal of their argument about how something is supposed to be or supposed to look or what someone is supposed to do, because therein lies the rabbit hole.
Brilliant. Oh, man. I had a conversation this morning that I think that rebuttal thing really resonates. Wow. On many levels. There's, for the audience that may not have thought this topic would be of interest, but is developing younger people, mentoring younger people in a professional sense. A younger person in a professional sense, let's say, in my field in financial planning, wealth management, they want to help cultivate relationships and they don't know necessarily how to do business. And I think without having any intentionality behind a rebuttal, but deep listening, just to build the bond, that's the answer. Wow. So that's unbelievable takeaway. Sorry, I didn't mean to repeat it, but so how do you actually help individuals navigate this complexity? What are the most, misunderstood emotional dynamics that you see when people face aging and major life transitions? I mean, I see it too. People transitioning from the work into the workplace or retiring from the workplace. So I see it in my own sense, but it's fascinating to hear your perspective because I think there's a lot of parallels.
Yes, and I love that you said that, because honestly, it's not always a diagnosis that brings someone in the door. This is not what I signed up for when I retired. I did not know retirement was going to look like this. It might be the person who's retired. More often than not, it's the wife of the person who's retired who's now looking at their spouse in a very different way and experiencing emotions and reactions to their way of being in this retirement state that is finding them agitated and full of angst. And so I love what you said, because we are typically very limited in seeing our own blind spots. And a blind spot, for most people, it comes from that space of the need to be right. Something is supposed to be a certain way, and if it doesn't look that way, then there's conflict. And what I like to invite and encourage people to think about is to be open to possibility and receptive to the answers that come through asking the questions, because there again is where new ideas and possibilities reveal themselves to us. And so if people are coming to me because they feel stuck, because there's denial or resistance to a conversation, how about an invitation to open ourselves up to the possibility that outcomes can look different than our expectations, and it can sometimes even be better. And if it's not, we have this superhuman power of choice, and we can make a new choice. And let's talk about that.
I love that. There's two things that I really love about that. One is reframing.
Yes.
I think I would say, at least 25 times a day, I'm reframing the way someone's looking at something. I'm not right. I'm not trying to be right. I'm just trying to reframe, could it be different and better? I think that isn't the need to be right. It's just trying to help someone get out of their own way to improve. And that choice is the Viktor Frankl quote, between stimulus and response is someone's true freedom. So I think that's brilliant. I think I might have a good holiday gift for you to put on your wall. That's a good one. Anyway,
okay.
You speak a little bit about relational wealth. I've heard you talk about that. Can you define what that is and why you think it's a competitive advantage in life and business?
Well, I think that, we often find ourselves interacting with the world very transactionally, and that makes sense in many aspects of our life. Yet when we can be really present to the relationships in our life and appreciate them and have gratitude for the value that they bring, whether it's through mind, body, or spirit, whatever, or all of the above, there is this relational, the value is what we've talked about, emotional capital, right? So when you are able to be purposeful and intentional in your relationships, when you are open to putting yourself in situations where you are going to meet and greet others on this path, you are putting great deposits into your emotional capital. I'll give you an example. In as much as I love the work that I do one-on-one with clients. I tell them all the time that while it is important and valuable for us to work together, there is so much value, exponentially sometimes more value, in the affirmation that comes from connecting with others on a similar journey. So this morning I gave a lecture at our local township, and what I love about that, and where this comes back to emotional capital, is watching what happens with the people who show up, in the relationships that form when they connect outside of, or even within the discussion. In other words, learning from each other. The cast of characters is different. The storyline plays out differently. We all have our nuances, yet there's reminders everywhere, and which are validating reminders that we are on a shared journey in this human experience, and we can learn from each other and benefit from each other's affirmations and experiences.
That's amazing. It reminds me of, I think I might have even shared this on another podcast, the idea that Arthur Brooks talks about the split of happiness later in life at 70 plus, and the difference of people ramping up their happiness and those decelerating are those curious and engaged in learning.
Yes.
And so being able to learn from someone else's experience is amazing. I love to dig a little bit deeper on sort of your work. I think you said something about helping people stay human in hard moments. Now that's I've been helping people with their finances for 30 years, and one of the things that has really struck me is the gap between knowledge, execution, and when emotion hijacks their ability to rationally understand the game plan, whatever it was. So I imagine that must happen in healthcare quite a bit. So staying human in those hard moments when someone is losing their perspective, what are some practical rituals, mindsets that you found that supports that emotional wellness during times of uncertainty or change?
And this is where yoga has come to be a very much been transformative personally and professionally, because what you're speaking to is that dysregulation that happens when we are in, as I like to say, real or perceived chaos. Although it's really, if you're perceiving it, it's real to you. So I want to acknowledge that. And that's part of this being human part. And reminding people that also part of being human is managing these multiple voices in our head, the multiple complexities, all of the learning and the wisdom and the knowledge that we've acquired over a lifetime, and now trying to use all of it to create roadmaps that take us ahead while feeling very sometimes caught up in the chaos of the moment. And so to regulate, I often invite people into what is a very simple practice of our breath, because we forget that our breath is always available to us, and oftentimes we're holding it or we're constricting in that moment, and we need to re-regulate our own nervous system. And I remind people that part of this being human, and this also goes back to a concept within yoga, is alignment. That oftentimes being human and finding alignment means being open to the experiences of others who are witnessing us. And what does it look like to be courageous enough to be vulnerable, to meet up with that vulnerability around something that's changing in us, and being receptive to feedback given to us that might help us align better with something that we're trying to accomplish. It's not, in yoga, sometimes we get to be not adjusted, but positioned differently by someone who is trained outside of us, because they have an objective view of where we are in space, whereas we have that subjective view. And even though there might be moments of discomfort, it's not about getting into the perfect pose or finding the perfect solution. It's about being at peace with the solution that you've found, and understanding that we're not judging it as right, wrong, good, or bad. We're not judging it, hopefully, at all. We're considering it as using all of our information that we have available to us to create an informed path forward, and maintaining that our humanity and our common condition at the same time.
Awesome. I mean, at Satovsky Asset Management, we try to help clients align, their money with meaning. And when you talk about alignment, whether it's in yoga or alignment, like, I don't know that everyone is clear on what their value
Right.
system is. I learned about my religious faith later in life, and it's really helped root me into rituals and help me feel grounded. So that's been healthy. But what does alignment look like to you, and how can people better integrate their values into everyday decisions in your experience, particularly at at the stages of life that you're seeing them?
Yes. And I think that's important, to have guideposts, right? Like, we don't need to know every single minutia of every, we have a moral compass. Hopefully we're attuned enough to ourselves that we have a compass that gives us a guidepost that we know, or we have some knowingness around how we want something to go. I find that people get another quote, analysis or paralysis by analysis, because again, back to that need to be right. When we get so caught up in, but what if it's the wrong decision, or it has to be the right decision, or I've got to get it right the first time. And I remind people that it's not a mistake or a failure. It's an opportunity for something new to reveal itself. So, because otherwise with the idea that everything has to be a certain way, we leave ourselves very little wiggle room and too much room for self-criticism and judgment around the decisions that we make. And so having guideposts, if the kids can come together, I tell kids, siblings of parents, when they're trying to build a roadmap and figure out how to move forward, first and foremost, they're at the head of the race, if you will, by even taking action to be on a call, to be open to the conversation, to hear each other. And if they can have even one guidepost that allows them to know that they all share alignment around the wellness of what their parents and what they want that wellness to look like, decisions can be made from that guidepost that align with that value that they all share.
I love that. So you also I've heard you talk about operationalizing compassion. How do you think leaders can bring that into the culture of an organization's without losing ambition, performance, or accountability for results? Because, an organization that has sustainability has to keep evolving and growing to be able to support the entire ecosystem. How do we maintain that balance in your view?
And forgive me, I heard myself sigh when you asked the question, because compassion. I mean, there's compassion for others, and then there's compassion for ourselves, which is something I am talking about so often with my clients, because what often gets lost in this conversation is self-compassion, and really how lofty it is for most of us to find that self-compassion. We're so generous, hopefully and typically, with our others to give our compassion, but coming back to ourselves can be very difficult. And I think also the sigh is reflective of years of seeing the universality of compassion and also the uniqueness of it, meaning that, I want to believe that compassion is an innate human attribute. Yet what we witness in the world we live in, especially now with social media and technology and so many ways for people to communicate, often inauthentically, I think that we've lost some of that the capacity for compassion has been fractured. And how we can operationalize it is to know what's important, what aspects of compassion are important in any given workplace, and how, as leaders, to demonstrate what it looks like. More than anything we could ever say, it's how we demonstrate presence, precious presence, to the people in front of us. And therein lies the possibility for people to glean a new understanding or a deeper insight into what it looks like to honor ourselves and others by being present to each other.
precious. It's one of the 7 emotions, Kabbalistic emotions, that leads you to daily consciousness. That's good. I like that. But I'm compassionate and grateful that you've spent the half hour with us and given us some of your wisdom. How can our audience find you if people want to reach out to you? What's the best way to seek out Karen Faith's wisdom?
I can be found via my website, karenfaith.llc, and we're on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, and I am always open to inquiries. There are only good questions, and if I don't know the answer, my job is then to help find you the person who can get that answer for you.
Oh, I love that. And do you want to leave with any parting thoughts? You've been helpful in our conversations, giving some hacks or habits. I like to try to give people like a daily habit. What are 1 to 3 habits that you could recommend for people that they can adopt in their lives proactively to be able to maintain their overall wellness? Wisdom, the topic of this is wisdom, wealth, and wellness. What kind of wisdom can you share for people to have wellness? I'll help with the wealth part in between for sustainability.
Yeah.
But, you can be the sandwich.
Yes. There's a couple things for me. What works is it doesn't have to look like yoga. Any kind of mindful movement that sort of breaks up the energy in the body when we first get up, or before we go to bed. Managing to, even if it's 5 to 7, 10 minutes of mindful movement. It could be a walk outside, awakening the senses. What do I hear? What do I see? A client once said to me, reminded me about the birds chirping outside when the seasons change, and noticing that. So I think this also speaks to self-regulation, mindful practices of being present to the moment that we're in, avoiding futurizing or catastrophizing. A lot of our anxiety is based on future events we make up that have not happened yet. That's a whole separate podcast.
Future events already realized. I know that one.
And making sure that we endorse ourselves at the end of the day for the things that we have accomplished, because it is so easy to get lost in the weeds of all the things that we didn't do or haven't done. Never mind that. Endorse yourself even for one thing. You got up today, you showed up in the world, and be present to that and endorse yourself.
Oh, I love that. Jonathan Sachs talks about the idea of celebrating. Find something to celebrate every day. It's transformative because it helps people be recognized and with enthusiasm. So
yes,
thank you, Karen. It's been a great talk today. Beyond grateful for your presence in my ecosystem. Remember to subscribe free to Wisdom, Wealth, and Wellness Podcast anywhere you get your podcast. All links are in the show notes, and all shows are at satovsky.com under podcasts. And of course, if you want a free cleaning up the clutter review of your finances, you can call one of our wealth advisors at satovsky.com and click Get in Touch. Have a great day. Thank you.
At Satovsky Asset Management, we believe refined wealth deserves refined service. As fiduciaries, our mission is to protect and grow your wealth through disciplined advice, hyper-personal service, and multi-generational trust. Our clients stay because we never oversell. We simply overdeliver.